New Mexico ranked in the bottom five of every metric we analyzed, with no standout positives in road quality or safety.
You've compiled this list of states with the best and worst roads, and I'm curious if you can kind of give us an idea first, what information or sources did you use to arrive at that list?
Yeah, we analyzed three key factors to determine which states have the worst roads. Two of them were road roughness for urban and rural roads, and the second one was car fatalities per 100 miles traveled. 100 million miles traveled.
Okay. And why those particular statistics? I mean, there's a lot of them, a lot of statistics out there you could use to determine road safety. What was the reason you chose those in particular?
Yeah, for roughness, the reason why we chose that one was because the Bureau of Transportation Statistics just released their new list for 2024, and that classifies urban and rural roads in every state as poor or good, which is based off of the International Roughness Index. And then additionally to that, to test which ones were poor, but also the danger of them, the safety aspect of it. We tested for fatalities, which is relied on the Federal Highway Administration data.
Okay. Well, let's start with the good stuff here. I always like starting positive. What is the state that has the best roads in your determination?
Yeah, according to our report, Indiana has the best roads in America right now.
Okay. And what makes them better?
Yeah, Indiana has the best roads due to having the second best urban roads and the third best rural roads, paired with the seventh lowest rate of fatality rates or fatalities.
Okay. And something that I do want to make clear for the listeners, because there is a lot of controversy in the trucking industry over the Indiana toll road. And to be clear, your analysis, I think you said in an email earlier, does not include that road.
No, we included an analysis of all roads within each state, but we didn't look at in individual particular roads and analyze them that way.
Okay. One of the things that struck me was the fatality rate in Indiana was particularly low. And I looked through some of the other states, and it really was very good. In your view, is part of that attributable to specific factors in infrastructure, or is more at work there?
Indiana's low fatality rate likely stems from various factors, including infrastructure. 95% of its 2,300 miles of urban roads are in good condition, along with 98% of 10K roads of their rural roads are also in good condition. That's nearly the distance between New York City to Phoenix on completely smooth roads.
That's nice. And I don't go a lot of places that are like that, so I'm glad to hear some place is.
Yeah.
Let's go on to your number two on the good list, and that was Alabama, which I guess kind of surprised me. But then again, I didn't know a lot of this information before kind of looking over your report. You mentioned in there the investment that the state has made in recent years. Can you walk through what they did and how it plays into the quality of their roads?
Yeah, Alabama's Rebuild Alabama Act has generated 320 million annually since 2019 for road and bridge improvements. Additionally, in 2024, government KIV announced that they invested 400 million in addition with state funding through the ATRIP2 program, supporting roads and projects statewide, keeping Alabama's roads among the best in the nation.
What are the particular statistics about Alabama's roads that stand out to you in this report?
Yeah, Alabama in our report has the highest percentage of both rural and urban roads. But it ranks second due to a mid-range fatality rate, which is about 2.4 fatalities per 100 million miles traveled.
Okay. Well, let's finish up on the good side with a look at number three, which is Idaho. And one of the things that stood out to me was the percentage of urban roads in poor condition. And part of this may be the definition of what constitutes urban, because I think a lot of people look at Idaho and don't think, what, there's urban there? But do we have any idea of what is going on? What are some of the reasons that urban roads in that state would be in the figures would be that much higher than rural roads?
Yeah, like you said, a lot of the roads are more rural than they are urban, and urban roads see more traffic, construction, and congestion, leading to quicker wear. But still, Idaho maintains some of the best urban roads in the nation, although they're lower than Idaho and Alabama or Indiana and Alabama. Idaho still has the fifth best urban road quality in the nation, with 90% in good condition.
Okay. Let's turn to the other side, the sad side. The states that are rated as having the worst road conditions. And this starts, of course, with number one on the worst list, New Mexico. And in looking at their road conditions, one of the facts that you included was how much the condition of their roads cost motorists every year. And I think, of course, we're talking here about primarily car drivers with this figure, but what was the figure and how did you calculate that?
So in 2025, this year actually, a report was released from the National Transportation Research Nonprofit, which is called TRIP. We found that driving on rough roads cost the average New Mexico driver over $1,000 annually. That includes higher fuel consumption, tire wear, and accelerated vehicle depreciation, all linked to the state's poor quality roads.
And I know from personal experience what rough roads, especially very rough ones, can do to an automobile. I've more than once blown a tire with a huge pothole, so
Oh, yeah.
I can certainly see that. Um, I'm wondering if you can kind of go over some of the main road condition statistics you looked at in New Mexico that kind of fed into this decision.
Yeah, New Mexico ranks last overall with some of the worst road conditions in the country. 31% of its 9,000 miles of rural roads are in poor condition, and 42% of its 3,000 miles of urban roads are in poor condition. And to give that a scale, that's like driving from New York City to Miami on completely rough pavement. Additionally, the state also has the third highest traffic fatality rate with almost two deaths per 100 million miles traveled.
Was there anything good in those stats for New Mexico? Anything that you would call a silver lining?
Unfortunately, New Mexico ranked in the bottom five of every metric we analyzed, with no standout positives in road quality or safety.
Okay. The state with the second worst road conditions on your list was Mississippi. And I was kind of fascinated. It turns out that there's a reason rooted in nature for some of this problem. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, Mississippi has clay soils, like Yuzu clay, sorry, sorry, Yazoo clay. That's how you pronounce it. Mississippi has clay roads like Yazoo clay, a highly plastic soil that swells when wet and shrinks when it's dry. And these shifts can cause humps and dips and dry cracks and surface cracks, making roads more prone to damage.
That's interesting because, one of the things that we cover every year is spring thaw restrictions because in the extreme northern climes, the soil can become much softer when things thaw in the spring and it can affect the roads. And you wouldn't think that there'd be something as far south as Mississippi like that, but it's the particular composition of this soil, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Since their expansion and their shrinking of their clay, it honestly makes their every year their ranking lower due to the road conditions being a little bit out of hand.
Okay. Well, that said, their statistics, of course, being number two on the bottom list, are not encouraging. Can you go over what conditions specifically their roads are in?
Yeah, Mississippi has the worst roads in the country, or second worst roads in the country right now. One of the highest fatality rates at 1.2 fatalities per 100 million miles traveled. 28% of its 18K miles of rural roads are in poor condition, and 41% of its 4,000 miles of urban roads are in poor condition. That's almost half of their urban roads in poor condition.
That's awful. The third worst roads are found someplace that was very surprising to me, which is Hawaii. Now, obviously, with our listeners being truckers, not a lot of them will be going there. But it is interesting, and I'm curious, what are the factors causing their roads to be in such bad shape?
Yeah, 44% of Hawaii's urban roads and almost 29% of the rural roads are in poor condition. Its climate and geography, including heavy rain, salt air, and volcanic activity, cause rapid road deterioration. And that's leading to potholes, cracks, and asphalt wear that affects the whole state of Hawaii.
It's interesting you bring up the volcanic because I've seen a lot of video, both in news reports or just online over the years, when they have eruptions of just huge flows of molten lava going right across the road. And obviously, that's not good. Um, but it's something I think those of us that are in states without that, which would be most of them, wouldn't even think about having to deal with.
No, these tropical areas have completely different issues that a lot of the mainland states have to deal with. Still attributing to the worst roads, but completely different than you would imagine a state like New Mexico experiencing.
How much does that state spend on roads, Hawaii? And are they getting value for the dollars they're spending?
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't look at infrastructure spend regarding the poor roads in the state, so we can't really speak on to that.
Okay. Do you think there are any overall lessons that states can take away from your study to kind of help them do better?
Of course, poor roads affect everyone, whether it's a minor inconvenience or a daily frustration for drivers. They accelerate vehicle wear and tear, leading to costly repairs. The advice I can give to drivers is to plan routes wisely. States with poor road conditions like New Mexico and Mississippi may have rougher roads that lead to vehicle damage and slower travel times. But at the end of the day, knowing where the worst roads are and they affect your vehicle can help you avoid costly repairs and stay safer on the roads.
Okay. One last thing I wanted to ask you about. Um, Tell us a little bit about your organization, Consumer Affairs. What is it? What's its mission? And what made this particular topic something the Consumer Affairs wanted to tackle?
Yeah, Consumer Affairs deals with consumers directly. They come to our website to get the best advice, reviews from other companies, and we put out reports based on data to help consumers make the best decisions. So, Worst Roads was something that we wanted to give our consumers since we do have a part of our website dealing with car warranties. So, we want to make an educated decision for all of our consumers to go to make their own conclusion about where to drive and where to get their own insurance.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time and for all the information. We certainly appreciate it.
Of course.